Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Pittsburgh Board of Public Education Agenda Review. I would like to start out this evening by welcoming two very important people who have joined us. Mr. Corey, past principal at Brashear, and Mr. Fisher, past principal of Alderdice. They are, the history. How many years were you at each school?
20 years at Alderdice.
34 years with the Pittsburgh Public Schools.
And we're glad you decided to join us. We've actually changed a few things. All right, we will begin with the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit, and I would like to ask Ms. Bear if she has any input she could give us.
So, thank you, Mrs. Hazuda. Our agenda is light this month, and we're asking the board to look at the Committee on Education, renewing a contract for an individual to come in and help with the parent engagement responsibilities. It's one piece of a three-piece responsibilities that we have for the parent engagement with the IU and the non-public schools. And then under general authorization, we're asking you to enter into an agreement with the school district for the Title I services for the non-public schools. And then the last is our daily payments. So we have a light agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Bear. And we will start with, we said we were going to switch this month to give Mr. Brentley a break once in a while. Mr. Sumter, do you have any questions on the Committee on Education?
This is just once in a while? No questions at this time. Thank you.
Ms. Shealy? No, thank you. Mr. McCray? Dr. Hawley? Mrs. Fink? Mrs. Scalise? Mr. Brentley? Anyone have any questions on the Committee on Business? All right, thank you, Ms. Bear. And with that, we will go on to the Committee on Education and ask for Dr. Lippert to give us a little overview.
Good evening, everybody. We'll start like we usually do with an overview of each section, and I'll walk you through. We have 4 additional tabs that you have in your blue folder. I'll go over those as we go over each section and where those go in the actual packet. So we'll start with our proposals and grants. We actually have 7 proposals and grant acceptances. 2 of them are our Title I and Title II annual acceptances. Both of those actually represent a reduction. Title I, that supports our reading and math supplemental services, shows about a 9.5% reduction, and Title II is about a 2.6% reduction. We talked to the board previously about this, but this is as a result of the census data that was released. Next, we move into 2 tabs. Again, they're annual acceptance tabs. They support our ELECT program. Our ELECT program supports our pregnant and parenting teens, as well as the Fatherhood Initiative that is also part of the ELECT program. That acceptance totals a little over $1 million supporting that initiative. We also have in this section that we're really excited about is a 21st Century Community Learning Grant that will support 2 schools. The district actually submitted a grant, which typically we don't, but we were thankful that the PDE actually put out that both community-based organizations as well as districts could apply for the 21st Century Learning Grant. We were successful in being awarded over $800,000 for 3 years that will support after-school programming at both King and Langley that will be focused on the middle grade program. We also have our Education Jobs Fund acceptance, and then I'm going to take you into the blue folder. We have, in addition to this section, it's 6A, so if everybody can go into your blue folder. 6A is both a submission and an acceptance from the Heinz Foundation, and it is going to support a trip to Yes Prep in Houston, Texas, with key stakeholders. The reason for this is so that we can study best practices and bring them back to support our schools and school improvement. Okay. That concludes that section. We'll move into our consultants and contracts. We actually have 8 items in this section. The first one is submitted by our board president for Bonner Consulting, and that's for performance evaluation documents. We have 2 items related to the 21st Century Grant acceptance for King and Langley. One is for a partnership with City Parks, supporting the enrichment opportunities, and the second is for a contractor for evaluation purposes on that grant. Evaluation is a requirement of the 21st Century Grant acceptance for those 2 schools. We have 3 renewals that are our annual contracts. One is for the Rand Corporation, which supports our principal incentive program. We also have our 4th year supporting our College Board initiative with PSAT exams for every 10th and 11th graders that we pay for. And then we have a renewal for Fulton K-5 that's supporting the Crunk initiative for the center, with the Center of Life, Center of Life. And we also have an early childhood contract. This is a new contract that's actually supporting the development of a business plan for early childhood, and that's to provide more support. We've talked several months ago about a tuition-based program. This is really to support Mrs. Carol Barone Martin in developing different initiatives around our early childhood program when it comes to the accountability block grant and things like that, because we're constantly finding ourselves in situations where our program depends on money coming in that sometimes is in, sometimes is out. So that's the purpose of doing a business plan development. And then I'll take you back into your blue folder for 13A. 13A is a late addition. This is a partnership with Addison Behavioral Care, specific to Westinghouse. And it's going to be a partnership with the Student Assistance Program at Westinghouse, focused on helping students, providing them with social, emotional, and behavior support services. So we can get into that with board member questions. Okay, moving into payments authorized. We have 8 tabs in this section. One is the approval of our supplemental education services. This is annual. We're excited because we're increasing from 25 service providers to 45 this year. That's money that's in set-aside Title I. We're also in this section have Perry's Biotech Program, a partnership with Carlow University. This is exciting because as our students go through Perry's Biotech Program, they can actually earn 4 credits of college credits for biology for students that actually successfully complete the program with an A or B. We have 3 tabs, tabs 16, 17, and 18, that are annual. One is the BLAST program that we're excited about because that's our Carnegie Library partnership that supports our K-5 and K-8 initiatives for reading. We have, and that partnership, by the way, has been in existence for over 10 plus years. We also have the Dancing Classrooms partnership with Mercy Behavioral Health. We're moving into our 4th year of that program with positive results. And then we have Reading is Fundamental, which of course is another 10 plus year partnership. We're really grateful for that. We have over 29 of our schools participating, and that supports pre-K through 8 in the schools that will be listed on the tab. Bear with me, it's a little bit long of a section. We also have our annual tab for early childhood, supporting the Male Fatherhood Involvement Committee in their events throughout the year. We have another annual tab that's moving into its 2nd year, and that's supporting our community-based vocational education programs, our Start on Success programs, and also our City Connection programs for students in our special education program, and that supports the transition of them actually gaining employment. So what we're asking you to approve are 18 job coaches that we had in place last year to really support them with on-job learning and on-site learning. And then that section rounds out with transition support for maintenance of our library service software equipment. And then moving into our general authorization section, this is the largest section in our packet this evening. We have 16 items. We have 5 donations that total over close to $225,000. I'll go through these briefly. We have $10,000 that, again, is coming from the Heinz Foundation through the Arts Education Collaborative that's supporting our arts education reform specific to curriculum writing. We have over $100,000 from the Children's Museum that's in partnership with Allegheny Traditional Academy Elementary School that's supporting a teacher on special assignment to work on the Children's Innovation Project. And this teacher is being replaced by a furloughed teacher, so her position is being backfilled, and she's moving into a position on special assignment where she's actually coaching teachers in the school. We have a $60,000 partnership with RiverQuest. RiverQuest is about the river learning, where students get to go out on the boat and they take river samples. So it's really promoting environmental science. We've been in partnership for quite some time with RiverQuest, and we have 23 schools that actually participate in that program. We have a $2,000 donation from the Friends of Kappa supporting a Xerox copier. This is a very special Xerox copier because it's able to copy sheet music, and it would be available to other schools in the district as well. We're grateful for that contribution and donation. And then we have $50,000 to $75,000 in donations from Jumpstart Pittsburgh, affiliated with the University of Pittsburgh, that supports early childhood initiatives and programs. We have 3 amendments in this section, one to an early childhood tab, one specific to Phase-On with a mentoring program, and one related to Cambridge Educational Group. This tab, Cambridge Education Group, is the organization that supports our student perception survey. You might have heard of it, called Tripod Survey. This is the last month of that contract. We actually are asking for an increase because we had additional reporting requirements that we added and more student surveys than we anticipated. Next month, you'll see a new contract that actually renews, but we are doing an extension because we're within the contract period. Next month, you'll see another tab related to this. And I'm almost done. I'm going to take you back into the blue folder in a minute. Moving into other items of interest in the general authorization section, Dr. French last night presented the district improvement plan to you. So we're asking you to approve that, not only the district improvement plan, but the 11 school improvement plans that go along with that. We also have an MOU approving the partnership with our 5 community-based organizations that were also successful in being awarded the 21st Century Grant. So the district was successful, and you have that in the front part of the section, in getting monies for King and Langley, but we also have approval for 5 community-based organizations that were also awarded the 21st Century Grant. And remember, that's coming from the state. And both our community organizations were able to apply for it, as well as the district. Number 26, I'm going to take you back into your folder because this is a replacement tab. It's a placeholder in your packet, but if you go to 26, you can pull that out of your blue folders. 26 is our MOU with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, and this is around our work with eliminating racial disparities in our district and the achievement of our African American students. Number 27, I'm going to keep you in the yellow folder, is also a replacement tab. I know several of you were anxious for this to come back forward. This was the item that we pulled last month related to the truancy prevention program. And that's provided through the Allegheny County Department of Health Services. And that's going to focus on 2 schools, King and Manchester. It took us time. We had to pull it last month because we want to do a thorough job in identifying the schools that would benefit from this service. And then number 28, we do apologize. This is slightly retroactive, but we wanted to recognize and thank UPMC because they did provide close to $11,000 in supporting career awareness field trips for 6th and 7th graders last spring. And over almost 800 6th graders and close to 800 6th graders and close to 600 7th graders were able, because of UPM's donation, to participate in UPMC health fairs and also go to the Carnegie Science Center to learn about STEM careers. So we wanted to bring that forward. We apologize for it being retroactive. It just got lost in some of the transition when Miss Mike was out having her baby. And the only other thing that I'll bring to your attention in this section is that we do have one placeholder that's going to remain a placeholder until we bring it to the floor. That's number 29, and that would be brought to you at the legislative meeting. And I do think that concludes. Sorry to be so long-winded, but.
Thank you very much. That was excellent. Mr. Sumter, we'll start with you. Any questions?
No questions, thank you.
And you know what? We'll start with proposals and grant awards numbers 1 through 6A in the green pages. Still no questions?
No, just a comment.
All right.
I think we can start with each board member at meetings and go rotation-wise, so it's not just on me and Mr. Brantley to start and stop.
I know, you'll really confuse me. Let me stick with starting with you this month.
No questions at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shealy? I'm
I'm not sure, I guess I'll do it now. And it's regarding the 21st century learning, and it's probably more tied to, the two that are tied together, which is 5 and 26. Is it 26? 25? So many questions. Where, we have 21st century learning programs in effect right now that are outside of this grant that have a separate stream of funding?
Yes, there's, I think we're at least in like cohort 6 of 21st century. It rolls. I don't know, Jan, if you want to provide more. Where is Jan? Oh, there you are. If you look at your tab 25, we're in several versions. So this is annual, and this actual tab for King and Langley, and then for the 5 organizations that are approved, and on the back of the tab, it tells you what schools they'll be working with, is a 3-year grant. But there's been other iterations of the 21st century learning. So we actually, the process to select King and Langley was due to looking at how many schools are actually serviced by 21st century learning grants and applying for schools that didn't have a partnership that met the criteria.
So I guess I'll get right to the root of my question. Does Faison still have their 21st century program? They did. There was somebody in Homewood that wasn't Westinghouse. Because we hired people under 21st century coordinators.
So at Faison, they have family guidance that works over there, and we have an extension of their work this month in the tab.
Like the personnel report, when I would see 21st century learning, ABC or whatever, I assumed incorrectly that was tied to the 21st century learning grants?
I'd have to check. I don't know.
Because I can pull, I can tell you names that I won't do,
Uh-huh.
but of people we hired, like in the last fall, last winter, in the Homewood area, that I thought were at Faith.
Yes. Okay. So
thank
we
you.
did have 21st century that worked with family guidance over at Faison. Yes. That funding ended. But we still are going to provide support through family guidance through additional funding that we have through another funding source. But that was a 3-year grant and it ended.
But, so the amount of services that they got, say for example, last year will continue into this year, it's just under a different
Funding source.
funding source?
Yes.
Okay,
We wanted to continue that.
okay, thank you very much, and that's it for me.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. Mr. McCray.
Thank you. On number 3 and 4, the Elect Fatherhood Program, they had a really good system at Oliver. Is that moving to Perry with the students?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Ms. In 1 and 2, which are Title I and Title II, there is a decrease in funding. And again, with fiscal years, state fiscal year, our fiscal year, federal fiscal year, I'm wondering if we have any idea what the fiscal impact will be on the district at this time, or is that something that Mr. Joseph and Mr. Camarda will get into as we do the next budget year?
We're monitoring closely what we have feelers of what could possibly happen. There's other issues related to the federal legislation that could dramatically, affect us, and we're watching what's going on at the federal level. And so we don't have the number to say what we're expecting beyond this.
There are really 2 issues that are impacting us. As Mr. Camarda said, the first one is this, the change in the census data that reduces our allocation in these 2 funds. But the second thing that can be equally or maybe even more dramatic is this whole federal issue around what is called sequestration, which we're going to be talking to you more about, but this is this funding cliff that if Congress doesn't act to reduce spending and, work on the national debt, they had agreed that, they just kind of doing a cross-board cut to virtually everything. And if that would happen, I've seen estimates that our reduction in title funds would be around 10%. And I think that would be both Titles 1 and 2.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Dr. Lane, but I mean, again, we're hearing different things that maybe it won't accept the funds to educate, they'll exempt the funds for education. Again, we don't know, but I asked the question because in the midst of trying to deal where we're going to be next year, we know what the state allocation is, we now know what the federal allocation is, everything's declining, correct? I mean, we're not seeing any increases here. So, I mean, the burden then again falls on us in terms of balancing the budget, which is always not that pleasant. I do want to say that I think that, again, it's good to see that the programs in 3 and 4 are going to continue in this district because I think they're necessary for both of the mothers and the fathers. And then on 6A, I think it's great that you're going to Houston, knowing Dr. Greer and hearing him talk about this particular program. He thinks it's not only affected the school that it is in, but has really helped drive student achievement in the entire district. So my hat's off to you for doing that. Yes, I know that Mr. Vaught is here. I will mention it. I mean, the Heinz Endowment support is incredible. It's right at my back, so it makes me a little nervous. But nonetheless, I do want to thank Heinz for supporting that. I think that we'll learn a lot for those that are going down. So thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Dr. Hawley.
Yes, I do. I want to go back to item number 5. The 21st Century Community Learning Centers, what other schools, are they in other schools throughout the district? What other schools are they in?
We have an extensive list: Miller, Lincoln, Manchester, Arsenal, Wow, UPrep, Westinghouse. We can get you that list
Okay,
specifically.
I would like to see that list. So this is new monies that you're just adding these 2 schools on?
Yeah, so what ended up happening is there are several, they call them cohorts of grants that are released for different funding periods. And Jan talked about, cohort 6 that came to an end. Now we have cohort 6A. And so the money comes from the federal government to the state. And the state this time, instead of going straight to the community-based organizations, said not only can community-based organizations apply for this, but so can school districts. So what Jan's office did is actually look at schools that have existing 21st century grants against schools that meet the criteria, and 2 schools that weren't currently being served by either SES providers or 21st century pre-existing partnerships or other community-based or faith-based partnerships. King and Langley surfaced as meeting both the application requirements, because you have to be Title I eligible, and there has to be a certain number of students that you can serve. And that's why we submitted those as 2. And you also have, of course, principal interest. So that's how those 2 schools were submitted. Now, we submitted those as a district and put in for a grant, and we're awarded $860,000 for 3 years. And then we're accepting the 5 community-based organizations that also were successful in submitting applications. And that was a collaborative effort, because what we're trying to do is capitalize on the amount of money coming from PDE that's supporting PPS students, both from the district applying as well as from our community-based organizations applying. Sorry to be so long-winded.
No, that's fine, because I was just wondering, I wanted to make sure that other schools were a part of the 21st Century Learning community as well. And if not, I wanted to know how that these 2 schools get selected. Now, tell me, are you telling me that Pittsburgh King they didn't get SES monies last year from Title I? They should have.
They probably did. What I will attempt to do in collaboration with Jan, I wrote it down as we were going around, is to get you a comprehensive chart by each school, and so that their SES partnerships, their 21st century partnerships, as well as other community-based. In July, you approved over 60 partnerships, community-based, it was an MOU, community-based organizations and faith-based organizations. We'll give you the most up-to-date information, because you're going across those 3 pieces, and so it gets complicated. I don't have it with me tonight, I don't think Jan does either, but we can get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you. My first question is there a reason why these board tabs are late? They didn't get into the packets? Like 6A? I mean, did it just come to you, or what?
I would have to defer to Dr. Lane and whoever submitted them.
Actually, that particular one is my fault, Mrs. Scalese. We were, up until today, I hadn't actually explored adequately the question as to how we were doing this. And so we reached out to Heinz this afternoon to verify how, we knew that they were going to support it, but I wasn't sure if we were actually receiving money or if we were just, receiving, the actual trip. So we verified that, and they prefer that we do it this way. So that's why it's coming to you late. Now, as to the others, I will put other people on the hook for those.
It's just that you like to see that beforehand so that you have the opportunity to get some more information as you go, but that's okay. Number 6, in here it says that there's going to be other indirect costs. What are indirect costs?
That's, the indirect costs are actually a part of the money the district actually recovers from the grant based on our approved indirect cost rate. So it's for services for the accounting service, budget office, support services. It comes back as, it's a charge to it, and it comes back as a revenue to us.
Okay, but it's still covered under this money though, right?
That's correct.
Okay, that's really what I wanted to know. That's it for this section. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Calazzi. Mr. Brentley.
Quick question for number 3 and 4. Doctor, can you tell me, can somebody, 1 through 4, will any of these items, or have any of these items, will they impact the Mail Initiative, the program that we have in place already?
I don't know if I can give you an answer on that, Mr. Brentley. I think that you're talking about 1 through 4?
Yes. I guess it's really primary 1 and 3 and 4, but I'll cover all 4.
Okay, well, Title I, I think we do have family engagement as a part of Title I. I don't know if it's specifically the Mail Initiative, but family engagement is a part of the Title I program. So schools have funds that they do devote to family engagement, not necessarily specifically fathers or males.
But in Title I, we have a designated department / area for male initiatives, father initiatives.
No, not specifically in Title I. I think the only one that you have tonight that has a specific male initiative piece is the early childhood one.
Early childhood, okay.
Yeah,
Will
that
these-
is specifically.
Are
yeah.
these dollars, or any of these dollars, increases or decreases, are they impacting that program at all?
And Carol is here. I don't know if you have anything to say. I don't believe that there are increases, but I do believe they do support the program.
Carol Barone Martin, Executive Director for Early Childhood. None of these grants are connected with the Early Childhood Program or the Mail Initiative.
Okay. Will we, let me just ask you direct, we talked about cuts and possible shifting and changing of dollars. How are we, or will we have our Mail Initiative program this year?
We have now know what our dollars are for this year, and we will have the Mail Initiative program, but we have not been able to recall all the staff that were working in it last year.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you to be a little bit more specific, please. And I know we can't get into any particulars, but there are only 2 individuals running that program. Will we have those individuals?
Those 2 individuals did not have the seniority to be recalled to the program for this fall. The coordinator will still be here, though.
Okay. Doctor, I just want to share with you, and it should be a high priority. I want to remind you, as well as everyone at the table, that, we did get a bump nationally with the program and the work of that particular department. And I'm asking you and your staff to kind of sharpen your pencils, be creative. You don't make national news and national recognition for getting fathers out and then we shut the program down. Some of it, I understand, may be beyond us, but I'm just asking that we be creative. You know, we've been very, very creative, I know in my years being here, with the contracts that we've given out and the creative ways of rewording contracts that I've had major problems with. And so I'm only asking that that works, that program works. Those two individuals were very, very key in making the success that we are experiencing on the national level. So if not covered there, let's talk about something so that we can kind of keep up with this good work in addressing those issues of the fathers in this district. I have some suggestions, love to share with you, but just want to put that out. I understand because there are other items here where we're doing at Fathers and Male Initiative, but you know, we are the lead school district, and I'm just asking that we stay in the lead by keeping the program and really giving it all the support that needs to be successful. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. We'll move on to consultants and contracted services, numbers 7 through 13A on the pink pages. Mr. Sumter, we'll start with you.
No questions at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shealy?
Dr. Lippert actually answered my one question in her introduction. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. McCray. Mr. Eisler?
Thanks, Mrs. Azuda. On number 10, which I think is HR, is this the first time that we're going to be taking a look at the principal incentive program?
I'll answer that. You okay, Jody? This is actually, RAND has been in partnership with us for 5 years previously. This was our partner when we had the first TIF grant supporting our Pulse initiative, our principal evaluation initiative. Remember, our first TIF grant actually went to support principal evaluation. They've been in partnership with us. Our TIF grant ended, and this is to continue the principal performance incentive program, the actual calculation.
So it's the calculation, not an evaluation of the program.
That's correct.
Thank you. On number 11, again, it's the 4th consecutive year that we're doing this, and I think it's great that all students have the opportunity to take the PSAT, and it covers all students in all schools. So it's not like other programs where we're not able to fund all students in all schools. This does, and I think it's really a very important thing. And then I also think, given the fact of where we are in early childhood and the support that this district has given and the support that the district has gotten from the community, I think that this coming up with a business plan is really quite a wonderful thing, and I look forward to receiving it, Mr. Barone-Martin, when it's completed. That's all, Mrs. Azuda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Dr. Hawley?
Yes, number 9, the consultant contract. This person isn't working for the school district now, or is she?
Not to my knowledge, Dr. Hawley. No.
Okay, I thought this is what the person who is held accountable for this tab, I thought this was her job. That was her responsibility. It's not?
No.
Number 9.
The actual grant requires us to have an external evaluator. And so this is meeting the grant. You know, some grants have certain grant requirements. The 21st Century Learning Grant requires us to have a percentage of the grant spent on an external evaluator.
Okay, that's fine. Number 10. I know that we used them to do the calculations, but we also used RAND to do the evaluation of the program. And I'm just going to piggyback on this from Mr. Eisler. Did they do an I know they did an evaluation of the program. Was that evaluation ever given to the board? It was? When? When was it given to the board? Because I never got a copy of that.
I think that was made available
4 to 6 weeks ago, and there's a copy of it in the board office. It was in one of the board updates.
Okay.
I can go back through and find it for you.
Would you please? Was that also given out to the, is the public permitted to have that type of information?
Yes, it's available on the RAND website.
It's on the RAND website?
Yes.
It's not available on our website?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
So they did turn into a really nice book, and so there were restrictions in
A
terms of.
book?
Right, in terms of its, a paperback.
Okay.
So, in terms of, there are restrictions, we could see there are certain things that are allowable to be broadcast electronically, and we can certainly see about putting that on, but there are restrictions. It has to be for educational institution use, so that may meet the criteria.
Because I was sort of interested in how it actually correlates with how well children are actually doing in the school district. And I guess since they did the evaluation for 2011, we can actually glean some information from the report that they turned out this year with the academic achievement of the students in the school district. So, yes, I would like to see that and see what we're doing with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mrs. Fink? Mrs. Khaleesi?
Thank you. On number 7, just so the board knows, this is actually a renewal of the work that we've done. The same person's doing it. It's just they are no longer with the company they were with before, and the amount's actually smaller, just so the board knows that. And then number 10, is this a new contract, or is this actually a renewal?
It's actually a renewal. I'm not, if you're, well, it's, it's like having someone right here, you know?
She is right there.
I mean, right there. It's actually, the box at the top of the board tab is actually checked wrong. If you actually read the text, it is a renewal.
what
They've been doing this work for 5 years.
Okay, so, and that's what I thought, but what I was kind of curious to know as well, is the scope of the work the same? Is the amount of money the same? Do we know? Do we have any idea?
Yes, it's the scope of the work doesn't change. They're continuing to do the services that they've provided for the past 5 years in terms of the calculations for us.
How about the money? Do we have any idea?
I would have to look into that and get back to you if
Okay.
the annual cost decrease. This doesn't include what Dr. Hawley was talking about, which is the continual evaluation of the program. It's so, in the actual TIF, Dr. Hawley pointed out that RAND was doing 2 things for us. They were conducting the external evaluation on the program, but they were also doing the bonus calculation. This is specifically only to do the bonus calculation, which overall, the contract would be reduced.
Okay. So, and when you say it, I'm sure I'll know it. Under department, IT is that technology? What?
Mark's department, instructional
It
technology.
says IT is technology?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure I knew what that was. And then this last one that we just got handed, can you give a little bit more on, is this a renewal or is this new? This is 13A. We've never, I mean,
This is new.
okay.
Last night, we heard a presentation about Westinghouse.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear because of
Okay.
this, so could I ask you to speak up? I'm sorry.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
So last night, there was a presentation in regards to the services at Westinghouse, and one of the things that we know that needs to happen is to have the services in place right when school starts. Normally, we submit our student assistance program. It was coming in September, but we wanted to make sure that they had the needed services there at the beginning of school. So that's why you're seeing this tab now. So it is new with Addison Behavior Care, and they will work with the school in providing services to the students at Westinghouse.
So it'll be in place for them
Right when school begins,
starts?
yes. So that's why that is here tonight.
Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mr. Brentley.
Just a question on number 12. It's more of a comment, and I guess it's to David Maystein, who is the contact person. This is for the Center of Life, who is going to be providing, I guess, tutorial services through this Crunk musicians. And I just want to say, you know, is David Maystein? He's not here. He is here. Is that, well, somebody can tell, is that the Reverend Smith, his group?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you know, I can't say enough about the group there. Thank you. He can't say enough about him. I know their commitment. I know how he's working with most of our students with their jazz band and other things. But what surprises me, individuals that I know their commitment to children, tabs come before us for pennies. All year? $9,000? All year, working with our students 1 day a week. Gas is more than $9,000 for his musicians. And so it just, you know, it amazes me. So if you are working with him next year and if you're working with him this year, work with them. And you know, and we don't have, because I'm guessing on the back here, you got to this amount by negotiated. Okay, so you were able to do your job, and I understand that. But we don't have a set rate on how we determine what other consultants and their value when they're presenting them to the district. But this is clearly one example that we should not be proud, not you, that we should not be proud of getting this group and their commitment and their experience for the few pennies that we're offering for what they're providing to our students. So in the near future, if there is a renewal, work with them, let's make them happy, and let's not have them get halfway through this contract and if these gas prices go up, have a problem with even getting to the site, you know, because they're always worrying about offering their services so low to be able to provide. So I just, you know, that's my little 2 cents about, you know, they have value, and we should be paying and offering them for what they are worth. And this one is clearly one that is way, way under. But thank you for having and getting them, Mr. Maystein. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. We'll move on to payments authorized, numbers 14 through 21 on the blue pages. Mr. Sumter, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. No further questions. No questions at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Shealy?
I actually have one that's not in here. Mrs. Fischetti, are we doing back-to-school packets this year?
The board will be receiving information regarding what the back-to-school program looks like this year. It will live more on the website than it has in the past, but that has always been the goal. But there will still be a mailing that includes the 12-month calendar, along with some other information.
Relatively soon, to highlight the first day of school?
I hesitate to say, it may be in the mail already, but I'd have to check for you for sure, because I believe you're going to be able to see copies of that Friday, because I saw a preview copy yesterday.
Thank you. Because I do not believe that a lot of parents have gotten much mail over the summer. Specifically, parents haven't gotten PSSA scores yet. And so it's just not, it's an unobvious date of when school starts. And so I guess we need to do some communication, because there has not been any, to my knowledge as a parent, on when school starts. And I'm guessing at this point on the day that it starts. And I would like something a little more firm.
When does it start?
I believe it starts August 30th.
For everybody or just?
For everyone except for, it always gets me, ninth graders and kindergartners. Ninth graders start on August 29th? Okay.
Ms. Shealy, we have a whole back-to-school program, so we will inform you of that, and we're actually going to be utilizing our website to a greater degree with some really great videos featuring some of our department heads like Mr. Vassar and others who play a great role in helping our kids get back to school. So hopefully you'll be excited that we've tried some new and different things that are, I think, going to be very engaging, but yet very cost-effective.
Thank you, Mrs. Fischetti. I just want to note it's the 15th. Maybe. It's the 15th. Which reminds me that I haven't gotten bus assignments either.
We can't hear y'all. It seem like
Yeah.
I was gonna try to act like that and hear it.
Oh, I'm not mumbling. They can hear me. I didn't know. I wasn't aware because I can't hear that.
It's funny, we got.
What they said is Mr. Vassar is going to be videotaped doing crunk, so.
And I'm not sure if Mr. Vassar's here or not, but I know we had conversation about the mailing of the bus information, which I believe we're in the middle of right now, are we not? Yes. Okay.
I understand it's a lot of work, but it's August 15th. Some of us like to plan things ahead, and yeah, it's August 15th. School starts in 15 days. That's my point. But to the Carnegie Library's BLAST program, I would just like to encourage you, because when I look at this, and Mr. Maystein and I had a conversation about this and how all schools don't have money to support this, because I just would like to see more schools on this list. This is such a small amount of money per school. So whatever we can do to push this to other schools, because there are a lot of kids who don't have access to libraries, who are not necessarily at Title I schools, who would benefit from the BLAST program, because it's a really great program. And actually on number 19, Ms. Barone Martin, is that the typical amount you spend for the Fatherhood Initiative program? The answer was yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Mr. McCray. Mr. Eisler.
Thanks, Mrs. Azuda. Number 14, these individuals who are going to be offering services to students in the Pittsburgh Public Schools are approved by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And I know that this board has had discussions about background checks and the safety of our children when it comes to students outside of direct access to the Pittsburgh Public School. Who enforces and makes sure that all these individuals have background checks? Do they have to be filed with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania or the school district of the city of Pittsburgh, or not at all?
They contract with the district. They have to be filed with the district.
And do we have those all on file? I mean, do we monitor this? I mean, this is roughly a 10-month contract. People come and go. Do we really follow up on this?
The people responsible for the program forward the clearances, those clearances that have things to be reviewed, as opposed to those that have no findings. Law department reviews. I'd have to physically check to see if we have these. We literally have thousands of them.
I understand, Mr. Weiss, and you have been in discussions over the past couple months dealing with issues surrounding children and their safety, and that's what I'm getting at here. I mean, there is a system. We are responsible. We are following through, and we can assure that all these providers that are listed that have been chosen and are certified by the Department of Education in Harrisburg, that anybody in any of these organizations that come in contact with any student in the city of Pittsburgh does have a clearance.
Yes.
Thank you. That's it. No further questions. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Dr. Hawley.
Yes. I'm curious as to the, for number 14. These are the only schools that will have SES providers? It's on the back.
Yes, if you look, they have to be, and there's some blessing
Oh.
in this, that it's kind of small, that you have to be in school improvement 2 or corrective action. So I'm trying to make it a very small list. So those would be the ones who meet the criteria for the SES program. That's the free tutoring.
Based on what year, I'm sorry, Dr. Holly, based on what year?
It would have been the year prior that would have,
2011?
yes.
Are schools that were on school improvement and corrective action?
It would, there's other criteria to be Title I school, and you have to be in
Yeah.
school improvement 2, not just school improvement 1.
Okay. The list that we just received, the list that we just received, those schools are not going to have access to the supplemental educational services?
I'm going to have to check with Tamaya, I don't,
Sorry.
so yes, there is a greater number based on our latest AYP results. And so I'll have to find the lag, because we've already had the SES providers approved and introduced them to the school. So I have to see, based on the new results, they've not been released by the state. So we'll have to see what happens in that transition year. So if we can get more children getting this service, then that's what we need to do. I mean, it will be a requirement. So I just had to find out what that time lag is. So I don't know if it's based on last year only, or if we can include the schools that have just recently been identified.
I was under the impression that it would be the schools that, that didn't make AYP and they were identified as school improvement to corrective action for this year, this upcoming school year. Is this the upcoming school year budget money that you're using for this? Last year's carryover or what? Maybe Mr. Camarda?
It's 12-13.
Then I think that the students that are in those schools that didn't make, that are in corrective action and school improvement 2, if that's where you're going, should be allowed to avail themselves to these SES programs. And yes, they do all have clearances. They can't get approved by the state unless they turn in all those clearances and everything to them. Number 21, do we have anybody that oversees the library services for the school district? And
We do not fund a separate library services supervisor. 2 years ago, that position was eliminated and the responsibilities were absorbed by the literacy team. So our K-5 supervisor handles the K-5 and the K-8 schools in terms of library services, and our secondary literacy supervisor handles the middle schools, the 612s and the 912s. One of the reasons why we need this continued support is because we've experienced staff transition in the literacy team, and we have to have some technology support. As you know, libraries are pretty much online, like the days of the card catalog don't exist. So in order to keep our circulations up to date, monitor collections, we have to transition the actual maintenance of those databases. And so this this contract is to support transitioning that through this year and making sure we don't lose those services, especially with the changes to the library services program in the schools right now. We need to make sure that our databases are stable for our librarians that are supporting more schools than they've have in the past.
so who does the new collections each year, and, the review of books and all of those other wonderful things that used to happen for libraries in the school district? Who does that?
We still do that. We engage our librarians that we have in that book review process. It's run very similar to how we do textbook adoptions, where we bring a group of folks in as a committee to review new novels, new textbooks. So we do it on a, in the fall and also in the spring. But it's convened by the literacy team, and instead of having a supervisor do that, the literacy supervisor does it with the librarians. So the librarians are as involved as they have been in the past, but it's coordinated through the literacy team.
Okay. That's new to me because I thought we had someone that would be there to do professional development with librarians. I'm just confused as to why there's nobody there to support that group. I don't think, no, and that's just my opinion. It's hard for me to think that a literacy teacher would be able to do that when there are specific skills that librarians are supposed to have, and to be professional development for them to have that upkeep. But if this is the way you're doing it, I hope that children are still benefiting from having good libraries in their building.
May I respond? Just in terms of professional development for our librarians, our literacy team does work with our librarians, just as a point of information sharing. Matter of fact, our high school librarians in our 612 and 912 schools this year are helping with the graduation project. So that's a collaboration between the English teachers and the librarians. The other thing that the literacy team does is, because our librarians are, research oriented, that training does come through the literacy team, because we do research units in your literacy programs. So it actually is a nice partnership between the literacy team and the librarians. And also, promoting reading and circulation and getting books in kids' hands to take home and things like that. So it may not be absolutely ideal, but it is working. And I mean, if you receive any feedback from librarians that they're not being serviced, you need to get that information so that we can support them.
Thank you, Dr. Holly. Mrs. Fink.
Things aren't working well tonight. I guess I'll take up where Dr. Holly left off. And I totally agree with having this gentleman do the technology pieces for the librarians that need done. However, with the reduced schedules for librarians, I'm wondering how much, particularly, not so much in the high schools, but particularly in the elementary schools, how much time these librarians are going to be able to spend actually teaching kids all of the resources that the library can offer, how to appropriately use those resources, getting the kids to circulate books, and putting them back where they belong when they bring them back. This stuff all takes time. And I am really concerned that our libraries are going to suffer a major decline in usage, because there really isn't going to be people there to help them, particularly with the younger kids, actually learn how to use a library. And I think this bears a lot of very close watching and reevaluation, perhaps as soon as the semester break.
Mrs. Fink, Dr. Rudiak has spent a considerable amount of time working on a plan that will actually increase our the utilization of our libraries. As you know, we had several libraries that were not even open last year because we did not have librarians. And part of our educational delivery model is ensure that every child has access to a library. And Dr. Rudiak has been meeting with the librarians. I can't even say the number of times, it's been multiple times, and working with the leadership group within the librarians to come up with a system that will ensure this will work. She's worked with the principals around this as well. We'll continue to monitor the circulation to keep the numbers, to keep track of that, to make sure that our libraries are working. Will be a full-time librarian also assigned just to work in the beginning to ensure that we get libraries up and running, who will be working with Dr. Rudiak. So there is a pretty good plan. It's a written plan, and we can even put a copy of it in the board office, because we are really concerned about this. We need to make sure that it works, and we believe it will actually be better in terms of utilization. Our libraries will no longer just be, the librarians will no longer just be assigned preps. It's prep coverage. They're actually going to be going in there and controlling the library and being able to be used for something other than preps. so the way that they were intended.
A plan is nice. The utilization of the plan is what I'm interested in.
Thank you, Mrs. Fink. Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you. So I'm going to piggyback on that a little bit too. Do we still do, at least in the lower grades, do we do a library class? Like, do we give them a time period they actually go into the, okay? So is the lovely technology that, you know, you could put anything in here and it'll tell you what book to find, where to find it, and how to find it. Is that part of the education in that time period? You know, teaching them how to research, because they'll get on the computer and they Google something, they know more than you and me and everybody else put together. Is that part of the educating in those classes?
Several years ago, we actually wrote a K through 8 library curriculum so that when principals actually scheduled library as a related arts, like they do music, art, phys ed, there's actually a scope and sequence of actually teaching students appropriate use of the library, et cetera. So we actually do have a district curriculum for library services.
Okay. So on number 17, I know I should know this answer too, but what's administrative time study? It's on number 17. It's in the payment data box. I have no idea what that is.
It's a portion of the Medicaid money that we receive.
I'm sorry, say that again?
It's a portion of the Medicaid money that the district receives.
Really? Okay. That's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mr. Brentley.
Yeah, I first want to just mention, Dr. Lane, that I am also one that want to kind of put out a sense of urgency about getting information out to parents concerning transportation. I am also one that sitting on pins and needles with a child, anxiously to move across town and not knowing how he's going to get there. As parents, we have to do a dry run. We have to try to walk. We have to try to coordinate because we don't know. Is he going to get a bus pass or is he going to get, there's going to be a yellow bus? So we don't know. So, and yes, it is too close for comfort in terms of 2 weeks out not having that information and not knowing that. So, you know, I just wanted to mention that. Secondly, I also want to mention as we get the information out in the mailings, you know, the back to school packets over the past, from my feedback, you know, we missed a lot of the hits. You know, I don't know if we have a system on screening to see what addresses are good, but I know of quite a few places that were mailed these packets. Folks have been gone or places have been closed down, and so we're spending those costs and we're spending that time and that particular, I mean, with that packet and that material. So whatever it takes, if we can kind of double check that we don't have the money to throw away. And if we're sending the message out, I believe it was mentioned we're going to be sending it out or putting it on our website. We have to be mindful. A lot of folks still don't have access to the website. So mailing is kind of helpful, but we kind of bombard them with all kind of stuff in the mail. And so we can keep those things in mind. It'll help us targeting our group that we want to get. Is Dr. Rudiak, is she in today? Is she here? I just wanted to ask her a question about number 17. Okay.
She's coming.
Doctor, this is the 4th year for the Mercy Behavioral Health Dancing Classroom Program. Have you been with it since
Yes, I
it
have.
started? Okay. Let me be the first to publicly tell you this is one initiative that works. This works, this works, this works. To see young boys with their pants up, standing straight, respecting young ladies, and the ladies look so pretty, and they're dancing, and it's orderly. I mean, you're talking about hitting all of the key points on getting our kids and teaching them respect. I want to ask you, what do you have new? What are you going to do to take this to the next level?
Find money.
It depends on what the next level is. The Dancing Classrooms program around the United States works with 5th graders and also 8th graders. So as Mercy Behavioral Health looks for more funding, we'd like to continue this into the 8th grade. And we do have students now, such as at Carmalt, where students who were 5th graders would continue on as 8th graders. So they would have an understanding of what the program was all about and how good it was for them and would want to continue with it. But at this point, the funding isn't there, and we also, additional funding would provide additional teachers to teach the dancing, and Mercy Behavioral Health is working through that.
Okay. Now, we're doing our part in terms of funding.
Correct.
Sure, okay. And have they thought about national competition or regional competitions that we can possibly enter the district students into it, or?
We have thought about that. The Dancing Classrooms in the United States does not have regional or national competitions at this point. And we work with Pierre Dulaine in New York City, and we follow his methods. And it hasn't grown to the point where there's competition outside of the school districts in which they work, or in the regions in which they work.
Well, you know, Dr. Lane, maybe then we can do this thing locally. I'm sure you have video from the last three years or so. Why can't we take excerpts from each year? Let's buy some time on the local television, if it's 20 minutes or half an hour, and just show, you know, this is the 100th year for the Pittsburgh Public Schools. So there's a reason to spend some extra money. But put those kids out there, and we can talk about dancing into the next 100 years, or something to put those kids out. I don't know if everybody here had the opportunity of witnessing this competition. Unbelievable. I mean, you can see your image in the shoes of the kids because the shoes were shining. So I'm asking you, Doctor, to be creative on finding a way of telling the story about our students, because everywhere else it's the complete opposite. But telling the story, and if you do nothing else, can you at least put a slice of the different years and get to each one of the board members, so each of us can get I've attended, I think, 2 of them, so I mean, but at least so everybody can get it, and hopefully somebody watching may even offer us that time on one of the local stations. Have we received any coverage at all over the 4 years, television?
We've received a lot of coverage, so I can put that together so that you can see what it has been.
Excellent. And finally, are any of the students that have graduated, is there anybody pursuing arts, dancing from this program that you're aware of?
Not that I don't know, but certainly I can try to find out.
Well, great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
It's a great program.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. We will move on to general authorizations, number 22 through 37 on the yellow sheets. And Mr. Sumter, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. I would first like to call attention to item number 26. That's the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission Memorandum of Understanding. Can the board be provided with a copy of that MOU? Is it in yellow?
Yeah, it's in the folder.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I have that. I guess the real question, not the real question, they're going to be monitoring, we're going to be doing. Does both sides know what they're looking for, or to tell us that we have achieved what we're, I guess it's looking for the metrics or the items that can, or is it just looking at test scores and achievement? going up. Is that all?
There are some things in the MOU that are beyond strictly academic achievement, because there were some goals around other areas, such as reducing suspensions and disproportionate identification for receiving special education services, those kinds of things. So looking at the changes in those measures are important as well. And the other thing that I think is important is, you know, later on this month, the board will be doing a presentation on the equity plan, and there are metrics in that as well. So yes, we will have some actual numbers by which we'll measure progress. And so these two things kind of will work together on that.
Thank you. And will we also, if need be, develop best practices from this and be able to track the results back to the teacher?
Certainly, looking at teacher performance, as we've been working on for the last 3 years, will continue to be an important part of this. Figuring out which teachers are doing a really spectacular job in this will be really important, because I think we can learn from those teachers, and should, as well as schools, because we have a lot of variability between schools, some that do just very, very well in terms of achievement of African American students, and others not so well. So learning both from teachers and schools, I think, are going to be an important piece of this. But we also want to say that this is not just all on teachers and schools. It's us as well. Those of us in this room that work for the district are equally responsible, and believe that, you know, we have a role to play too. So it's going to have to be a joint effort. And as we present this whole plan, we're also seeking the support of this board as well as our community and on behalf of kids.
I guess what I'm trying to get at a little more in depth is that this is probably the problem of the 21st century, the issue of disparate education within this country. And we've been working at this for decades, such that it's time to quantify or to get it right, and to make sure if that's going to be a goal of this district, if that's going to be something that we will see in our lifetimes, to be able to know specifically, as you said, what works, what doesn't work, who did it, who didn't do it, and how can we get it to everybody throughout the district, and then what are all the components that need to be in place to make it happen. So I guess I'm looking for a good study, a good monitoring, good results, bad results, whichever the case, but to have all that data such that we can make intelligent decisions going forward.
The data will be an important part of this going forward, because, as I said, the purpose of the data is really to learn, and that's what it'll do for us.
And like I say, the fact that we've been working at it, we've been hearing about it, we've been talking about it, other districts are on it. At this point in time, if we're going to be the premier district within the country, the world, perhaps, whatever, we need to address issues of major concern rather than business as usual. Thank you. The other item I'd like to draw attention to is item number 29, I believe, and that's the Career Connections Charter High School. I'm not sure whether or not the questions can be answered at this time. It's just basically two questions that I have at this point, and that is, do we feel that the team that went out to observe Career Connections spent adequate time on site? And the other question is, any items that were not found or found to be deficient, were questions asked of the staff to produce those items? So those are basically the questions I have regarding that at this time.
And I don't know if any member of the team is present this evening, but, and I'm recalling back to the original presentation in regard to the school, but I believe that the team treated this school as we do our other charter schools, that they go and they meet, and I don't believe they cut short visits if a school wants to present them with more information or give them more, have more questions to ask them. And I don't believe it took place any differently here than it would in any other charter review. So The time that they spent, I believe, was comparable. And as I said, I don't believe there was any effort to cut time short in case, people at the charter school wanted more time. I think they certainly could have had it.
I'm not saying the time was cut short. Maybe the time that we're saying is comparable or that we spend may or may not be enough time. But comments have been made that the review team found some deficiencies but didn't ask anybody for that, or that we had it and had we been asked for it, we could have produced it. So I just want to make sure the air is cleared before next Wednesday as to whether it was or wasn't. And if I remember back to the presentation, it was not more than one day that was spent there. And whether that's enough time to gather enough information, yes or no, to not have folks complain just on those elements. But other than that, I was going to recommend we discuss this further next week. So if that question or if that could be provided to us between now and then, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Zuda.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Ms. Shealy.
Actually, just a comment in this section on number 34, or I guess it is a question. Number 34, this is for the upcoming school year. It's Jumpstart. It's for, yes, it is for the upcoming school year. And these are college students. Is that true? The classroom volunteers?
Yes, they're college students from the University of Pittsburgh.
Okay. This is just a wonderful program and exposes our kids to a lot of things. So I'm glad to see that it continues for another year, and particularly glad that it's at no cost to us. I was able to attend the Read for the Record program event last year, and I hope to be able to attend again this year. It's a really great program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Mr. McCray.
There's a couple other really good programs right there. There's item 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. They're all fantastic. I think we have Representative Hines here. Thank you very much for your support. And River Quest is a tremendous opportunity for the kids. I can't say enough about that. It's so cool. But I'm glad to see that on there. And under 26, I'm kind of wondering, the upcoming workshop that's coming up, would that lead us to make amendments to this possibly, or do we have to do this right now? And
I don't know if amendments could be made at this point. If the board has something specifically you'd like us to address, we certainly can talk about that. But this has been a pretty long process that has gone through with our legal counsel, the Human Relations Commission, as well as our Equity Advisory Panel. So.
I'm just saying, I scanned through this and I got a pretty good read on it. But I'm just thinking, if we're doing this other project coming up, they might introduce something that we haven't seen in this. Then can we amend it, or do we have to amend it, or?
Well, we've tried to make sure that these two are not on two separate tracks. We've tried to keep this so that they're not contradicting each other.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, okay, never mind. That's quite, I'm just not really thinking straight. Okay, that's all I have.
We can always do more.
That's what I'm asking, yeah.
We can always do more.
Yeah.
Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. On 25, and I want to go back because Ms. Shealy mentioned this, and I think that either Dr. Lippert or Dr. French, these community-based organizations that we need to do the memorandums of understanding with, they were selected by the Pennsylvania Department of Education?
Yes. That's correct.
They were selected to work with us by the Department of Education.
Yes, so the 21st Century Grants, PDE, this is cohort 6A that we're talking about, put out a grant proposal. Internally, we coordinated with our organizations to try to maximize our submissions so that we could service more students. The district submitted, and then the 5 organizations that we're asking you to approve next week also submitted and were awarded.
Thank you. And I know that I want to move on here to 28. I know that Ms. Shealy and Mr. McCray did mention that there are some very wonderful donations in here. And I know Miss Mike is here because she was ecstatic to see her old high school principal. I mean, ex-high school principal, not old high school principal. He's a really young guy. Former, thank you very much. I knew you'd help me with the word former. Miss Mike, this is great that UPMC is doing this, and I know in years past, you've brought a number of board tabs to us where there's been opportunities for our students to participate in things in the community. Are they long-standing agreements, or do you have to renew those every year, and it's just one of many that you're going to be bringing before us in terms of career opportunities for our students?
Angela Mike, Executive Director, Career and Technical Education. This is the third year that UPMC has supported us in these field trips and out-of-school experiences, and it will come again before the board to approve next year also. In fact, we're working on that now, a plan for next year.
And when you brought a bunch of these last year, I remember, I don't want to give names in case they're not participating anymore, I don't want to embarrass them, but will there be other ones that you'll be bringing before us, or are those not year to year, but more in forever, where our students have opportunities to participate in career experiences with businesses in the community?
For the school year that is coming upon us, we will have additional partnerships that we will bring before the board for approval.
You're always looking for partnerships, correct?
Definitely.
Good. Do you want to give your phone number too? I'm just kidding, you know. But thank you, because I think this is really an important one, and it's a great one to see. Just for clarification on 31, the donation from the Pittsburgh Children's Museum is for $101,000, and we have to put we're putting $5,000 into so we can make the program whole?
That's correct.
It's really a wonderful donation. And then again, and you did mention this when we were given the new ones, the 27 is back with us, which is the program that Judge Woodruff has worked with the district and the county on. And I think that anything to help on a truancy issue is great, and it's really wonderful to see the community participating with us in this effort also. Thank you, Mrs. Uda.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Dr. Hawley?
Yes, I want to go to number 24, the district improvement plans. Are these the only schools that have to write plans? Are they the only ones?
These are the only ones that are required, that we have to submit plans. You may see another round coming in November with a required submission, but all schools, as you know, write plans. These are the 11 that have to submit for this timeline.
But these are just for right now. Okay. Number 26. And I'm going to try to make some clarification that I would like to know along with Mr. McCray's question. Is the equity plan a part of this MOU?
No, it is not, but those that, as this MOU was being worked on, both the panel and the Equity Advisory Panel, as well as the Human Relations Commission, knew that we were also working on an equity plan.
Well, I'm confused then. Shouldn't they be similar, or shouldn't the same items that you're working on in the equity plan be a part of the MOU?
We had actually a little more, I'll say, discretion around the equity plan as we worked on it, because that's written by us and submitted to you for your review and hopefully approval. Whereas the MOU is something that was worked on in conjunction with the Human Relations Commission, and clearly, you know, we had to meet their requirements and expectations as well. Now, that said, these two things are not in conflict with each other, and there are common elements, but there are some areas that probably would be unique to each, I would say.
The MOU seems to be, after reading it and then reading what we're going to work on the 27th, the MOU seems to have more substance to it in terms of what the district will actually be doing that's outside of what they're already doing that you've been doing for a long time. These are different kinds of implementation activities that will be going on. That's why I'm concerned that you have two. Which one will supersede the other?
The MOU clearly is an agreement we're signing, which we would expect that we would uphold. However, the equity plan is the same. As I'm saying, I think that I kind of have a picture in my mind that there's a large area that's common to both, and then there are elements that are probably in the MOU that are pretty direct, but not maybe specifically stated in the equity plan. And there are, at least I can think specifically in one area that's in the equity plan that actually is not reflected in the MOU. But in terms of which one are we responsible for, we're responsible for both of them.
I know that you'll be responsible for both of them. My question is, which one will one supersede the other?
I think it's common enough that it's not an issue of one superseding the other. I do believe that the goals may not be totally stated the same way in both plans, but the fact of the matter is, I don't see a conflict, and I don't see that, well, should we do A or B? It's a both an and, not an either or.
Okay. One of the items that I think that's missing in both this plan, this MOU, and in the plan, and I expect to talk a little bit more about that on when you brief us on the equity plan. There's nothing in here that talks about employment. And that's something that, if I'm not mistaken, that the original complaint against the district was about the district's hiring practices. So none of that is either in this MOU or none of it is in the plan. I mean, the equity plan.
That's correct. And I don't believe, and I'll have to review, I'm hoping my mind is remembering this properly, but I don't know if the original conciliation agreement had anything in regard to employment either. I do believe that of those stipulations, I don't think there were stipulations specifically around employment, but I will check and see.
Well, if I remember when the complaint was given to him, it was centered around the hiring of the superintendent at that time and the qualifications. So I was under the assumption that that would have permeated throughout the entire agreement, not just at that higher level. But I am saying to you, whether it is or not, that's something that I would like to have that somewhere in this plan where we are actually doing what we said we're doing on each and every one of our little, our stationery when it goes out, that is actually happening within the district. Because I'm going to say it again. I've said it in the past that, you know, I am concerned about the fact of the hiring practices in this district over the past 6 years, and I'm going to keep saying that. So if it's not a part of the equity plan and it's not a part of this MOU, it will still be a part of my concern when we come up to hire people. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that I know that the superintendent hiring was a part of the original complaint, but it was not a part of the conciliation agreement. I believe that was set aside by the Human Relations Commission.
Oh, okay. Thank you for making that clarification. Number 34, the donations from Jumpstart. Is she still here? Oh, it's a wonderful program. And as a former principal, I was always excited to see them come to my Head Start sites. And I'm wondering, are they only at the Head Start site at Crescent and the one at the Children's Museum?
At this time, they are, they utilize certain ones that are convenient for the students to get to on transportation. But they do also do some projects that are for all of our program. On Martin Luther King Day each year, all the Jumpstart students get together and they do a project. 2 years ago, they put together prop boxes for all of our centers. And so each year they pick a project like that. Last year it was something that parents could take home, a book that parents could take home and read with their children. So they make sure that all of our centers get, you know, some of it, but they're limited in the amount of students they actually have.
Oh, okay. So the reason why those two sites were chosen was because of transportation for the college students?
Yes, they wanted things that were easy for them to get to.
And those are easy,
Yeah.
those are easy to get to. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mrs. Fink. Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you, Mrs. Zuda. On number, if I can get to it, number 27, is this just a continuation of what we already have? Where is she?
No.
It's right there. Hold on.
No, this is actually a new partnership.
Okay, so what kind of information are we sharing? Any,
Can you be more specific?
are we sharing personal information about these students? Social security numbers, none of that? Okay.
No,
Okay, that's
no.
all I really wanted to know on that one. And on number 30, are we gonna have any information on who this individual would be? Because it just says that it will come to us.
Yes, there's a companion tab in the HR packet that you will see. The teacher that will be supported by these funds is Jane Wall.
Yeah, I didn't really need to know, I just wanted to know.
You'll see it in your
Is that a furloughed person, or do you know? Just
No, she's currently one of our music specialists, and actually was recommended by the Arts Education Collaborative because she's done extensive work. So,
I just wanted to know if it was on helping on the furlough issue. And then on number, I think I already got this answer, actually. At number 37, can you talk a little bit about this survey and what exactly it accomplished? I mean, if you could just give a little bit of information on that, please.
Sure. So this was the first year that we have 3 measures of teaching effectiveness in place. We have RISE, which is the evaluation instruments that's based on a rubric. We also had value-added measures for over 700 of our teachers. And this is the first year that we did over 50,000 student surveys on over 1,700 of our teachers. And so the Tripod project is based on Ron Ferguson's work out of Harvard. And it basically asks students their perception of their experience in the classroom. So you'll hear terms like the 7 C's, and they'll ask students about how they feel their teacher cares about them, challenges them, confers with them. Those are some of the items. The survey also has information around student engagement and some of the activities, kind of the pro-school values, that's what I refer to them as, in terms of how much time students spend studying outside of school, things of that nature. So we just received school-level results. Our teachers over the summer received their individual results that they can log into the system. So this is actually something that's built into our Empowering Effective Teachers work as one of the 3 measures that will go into our combined measure of teacher effectiveness, bringing into place the student perception in the classroom. And like I said, this is actually just extending the contract because we went over the number of surveys and we had to do more extensive reporting than we originally anticipated. But I'm going to bring to you next month a multi-year contract with Cambridge. So we'll talk more about it at next month's meeting.
Okay, so I'm a little interested in how they were administered. Like, did they do them in class? Did they get sent home? How did that process work?
Okay, so we did 2 administrations. So every teacher that had, more than 10 students had 2 of their classrooms surveyed, once in November and once again in April. It's very similar to if you ever had a college surveys where a person would come in and give a college survey to you or something like that. They were not sent home. We do have a parent survey in place, but this is about students. They did it during school. It typically takes about 15 minutes to do the survey. So it was administered in November and then again in April.
And I take it a monitor did it, not the teacher that they were surveying?
It's a little bit different. We had several variations. Interestingly, when you survey kindergarten, first and second graders, you had to actually read them the items. So the proctoring was a little bit different. In high school classrooms, and as you go through middle grades and high schools, sometimes they had other people administer, other times the teacher administered it. So we're still working with the RISE leadership teams on, kind of best practices and survey administration based on a year of learning, whether it's better to have, someone else come into the classroom. One thing, for the board to know is that teachers don't receive the information until the end of the year. So they don't typically right now receive mid-year results. Like if we do the survey twice, we wait and report at the end of the year.
Okay, so if a teacher is doing the surveys as they're older and it's on them, how does that work? So if I'm the teacher, because you said both teachers and proctors were administering the test. So if I'm the teacher that's being surveyed and that's my class and I'm doing it,
So
is
there's,
they handing them a piece of paper? How does this work?
so there's actually pretty sophisticated rostering process that happens ahead of time where we submit the classes. They're pre-printed, so to speak. So we send the classes that are going to be surveyed, let's say third period Algebra 1. Those students are sent to Cambridge and we get pre-printed surveys so that it's not, you don't deliver a pack of blank surveys to a school, pass them out and collect them back. It's all rostering, so we know every student that's in the classroom by teacher, by course code, which classrooms are being surveyed, and, we monitor the return of those packets against what's pre-printed.
But they're all done anonymous?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So will we see these results, and if we will, when?
We're working currently on getting the district report together. Teachers gained access first, and we're working on a district level. So we anticipate by time you actually have the board tab next month, that you will see district level and school level results for our first administration last year.
Okay, my last question is, when you say teachers already got the results, what do you mean? Explain what they got.
So their reporting system, every teacher gets a login, and they log into the Cambridge Education, website, and they can go in and get their individual teacher level results for, how it's reported based on the 7 Cs, based on the district average, based on the average of other classrooms surveyed in the school. So they were able to access those over the summer. It takes a little longer to get the district report. They would actually do that for us, analyze it, and then give it to us. But I didn't want to bring you the board tab to renew until we actually had the report ready for you to go with the tab to actually renew it for the next couple years.
So we're going to get the results and the tab for another contract at the same time? There won't be, is that what you just said?
We'll give you at least an executive summary of the work from last year as we ask you to approve the continuation of this work. But it is built in for our teacher effectiveness measure, has 3 measures, value-added measures, which we're in partnership with Mathematica for, the RISE, of course, which I think is most familiar to the board, and then Cambridge Education is our partner for the 3rd measure, which is our Tripod Student Perception Survey.
Well, I look forward to seeing these. I mean, I've been waiting for these surveys. I'm looking very forward to seeing them. But I was hoping we'd have some time to read it, get to understand, and ask some questions about it before we approve. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mr. Brentley.
Yes, Mr. Weiss, for number 26, How long is this MOU for with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission and the Equity Advisory Panel?
Runs through August 30, 2014.
2000, it's only for a year, 2 years?
2 years.
Okay. And what's supposed to happen after 2 years?
I believe that parties will again review where they are, and it's hard to predict what's going to happen in the future until we see the status of the district at that time.
Okay. And so the Human Relations is, so it's still an open case with the Human Relations?
Yes.
Okay. And so at the end of the year, they can, and even as well as what could have happened this month, they could have said, we've seen enough progress, all parties are satisfied, we can close the case. They could have said that.
They could have. I think reality is there would probably have been a more contentious process, and both the commission and the district believe that more progress could be made this way than by arguing about formal findings. I think there was a real desire on the part of the commission to see the work continue in the kind of way it's been continuing. And there were extensive discussions between Jocelyn Kramer from my office, the administration, Dr. Lane and the commission, both the retired general counsel and the current one, Michael Barrett, is going to sign this.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just want to say that this is one of the things that makes me embarrassed as a board member to say that I've witnessed something like this take place. I was a part of which once was the Advocates for African American Students. I was somewhat a part of the group when they filed because of the research that they were able to gather on the treatment and mistreatment of African American students, as well as applicants and educators in this district. It took us, I want to say 15 years, 13 to 15 years, just to solve the case. This district was able to do a wonderful job of just prolonging and pushing it, and they finally were able to get it to an agreement. That was 5 or 6 years ago, where this agreement was made to monitor it for 5 years. We are here now extending that agreement. Dr. Lane, I just want to say to you as the superintendent of the district, I am disappointed with your administration and the previous administration. Mark Roosevelt was notorious for making excuses and not providing the necessary consistency in personnel to address some of these issues. And the fascinating thing about it is when you look at this case, here it is, Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission is monitoring the Pittsburgh Public Schools on how it mistreats African American students in a predominantly African American district. You know, if that's not a national story somewhere to talk about institutionalized racism, deep racism, somebody's got to take this thing and run with it. You know, it makes no sense, Doctor, for us to sign this agreement and then you have a workshop afterwards. Workshop, discuss, hopefully even bring them in. Let's get some things we can put our teeth in. We agreed. Let's insert that into the MOU. Then we vote. In my opinion, that shows sincerity. But when you do things after the fact, you know, it's just a terrible thing for the district to do. And I got to be honest with you, I do not have the confidence in this administration, to be honest, to see this thing through. If someone would have placed this as a top priority, who would want the human relations monitoring them? I mean, do what we have to do to get it off our back. We strung it out for 5 years. Now we're going into another 2 years. Now the cover letter said that that most of their concerns that they raised were in the MOU. I'm not worried about most of the concern. I want to know about the ones that didn't get in there, that they're probably serious about, but maybe they may have met with opposition from the administration. So I am not happy at all supporting this. I'm going to show you what I'm going to let my colleagues know what I'm planning on doing next week. First of all, the commission, the Equity Advisory Panel was made up of volunteers. They have families. You know, they have jobs. They have other commitments. They stop, and then they meet with us. And when the Roosevelt administration was here, they would say, Mark, we would set our schedules aside, and then they would cancel. And then we come back, and then this was changed. I know of 2 of the members have passed, because we strung it out so far. They've passed. They passed on. I know 2 have moved out of town. And so what it appears to do, and I am so embarrassed to be a part of a district that purposely will just string it out. And we'll just keep stringing it out until they move on or whatever. That's terrible when we can control this. I am going to make a motion next week that, number one, that we put what I'm calling together a loan packet, and that is, at the very least, we provide the necessary tools that they need so they won't have to use their own. We can set aside, and Mr. Weiss, I know we can draw up some kind of agreement for a laptop, a fax machine, some copies machine, and even 1 or 2 cell phones for communications. Secondly, I would like to see a minimum of $20,000 be set aside for their incidental costs that they are incurring to trying to provide and work for us. And then the third thing, I'm going to strongly encourage you, Dr. Lane, that we withdraw this until we have the training or the workshop. If we don't do that, it means absolutely nothing. I mean, it's cute. We met with them, we've listened, we heard, but we can't do anything. The agreement has already been signed. And so I'm going to ask, and whatever the process is, for us to withdraw this until we have the workshop. I would like to see those commission members here. You know, I don't like talking about them when they're not here. If we can encourage them and say, look, let's all get in a room, let's resolve this, let's set a 6-month time schedule. What can we do to put in place to make you guys happy that we are monitoring and African-American children will now be treated fairly? And if there's something that they can agree to, then let's include that in the agreement. Maybe we won't have to do 2 years. Let's do that, call the commission, see if they'll accept that, and then let's begin to practice that. So I'm asking and I'm hoping that you would withdraw that. If you need a motion, I would be more than happy to put the motion forward. I would ask that you would reach out and invite those commission members, equity members to the event and allow them to come to the workshop. Let's talk and let's exchange and let's try to get this behind us. And finally, if anyone in the viewing audience do not believe that the issue of race is not still the #1 force moving on this board, just tune in next week and you will see each motion will be met with opposition by white board members. Rarely will they support it, and hopefully my African American colleagues who have followed this and understand this would be willing to at least let the commission know that we respect you, we understand what 5 years of your life you set aside for us, and we're still stringing you out. So tune in and watch. We have an opportunity to take a first step. So, Mr. Weiss, I don't know procedurally what the process would be for having this item pulled down or tabled, or how do you do that, or what's
the agenda for consideration by the board next week. If the board wishes to table it next week or not support it, that's the board's decision, but I have no authority to pull anything.
Okay, I just was asking for the procedural thing. Well, that's fine. I will, then if that's the case, now, the administration can pull or they cannot pull.
Well, again, it's before the board, and I can't speak for Dr. Lane, but this is the product of many days of negotiation with the Human Relations Commission. This was not a unilateral process.
I understand that.
So I believe it should be considered by the board. The commission expects it. Mr. Barrett, who's general counsel, expects it. And since you ask, I see no basis to pull it.
Well, Mr. Weiss, that's your opinion, and I respect and I appreciate that. That's a little bit beyond our discussion here. My question to you was to just legally, how would the item be pulled? We often do what Mark Roosevelt would often do. When do we have to do this, Mark? Well, you got to do it now because the deadline is here. We got to do it. No, house on fire, close Shenley, close Shenley. No. We're not going to fall for that one this time. We have some say-so, and I think for us to do it right, we've had other items that we pulled back and had to take a second look, and in this case, it means absolutely nothing to pull this forward, to say that we vote on it. And then you're going to have a workshop to probably really talk about the things we should have talked about to be included in it. It means absolutely nothing. Actually, it's misleading to the public. And so I appreciate you sharing that. Dr. Lane, I will make the motion next week, and I will ask that you reach out, have a conversation. Keep in mind, this district, over the last 5 years, we had, I'm going to guess, a minimum of 4 different district liaisons working with them. 4. So even in working out the details, they had no opportunity to build relationships and to provide the consistency. We've had a minimum that I can count, maybe 3, over the last 5 years. That's unacceptable on something that we should have jumped and made a priority to get behind us. So those are my plans. I hope you're supportive. I hope my colleagues are supportive, and I hope we're all ready just to get this whole item behind us. And I do agree with all of your comments you made, Dr. Hawley. Thank you.
Can I ask?
Dr. Hawley.
When the MOU was developed, who actually developed the MOU? Was it the district and the Human Relations Department, and the equity panel didn't have any say in this?
Ms. Burgess probably could be more specific, but the MOU, the agreement is actually between the district and the Human Relations Commission. But the equity panel was involved. In fact, they're aware of what's in it. They provided feedback, and so they were not uninvolved in the process. But the agreement is not with the panel. The agreement was with the Human Relations Commission.
But now, the equity panel, they represent the advocates that actually make the first charge. Am I right or wrong?
Some of the members of the panel were members of the original advocates group, but the agreement that we had with the Human Relations Commission had some people that were from the advocates group that selected members to be on the panel. The district also selected members to serve on the panel. So they're both district selected people as well as individuals that the advocates selected to serve on the panel. So it's a representative group of both advocates and district selected members. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, but I don't, that's like the fox covering the chicken. Okay.
Well, can I respond to that? The people that the district selected are community and there's a parent on the panel. They are not district employees.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to know if they had participated in this MOU as well. Did they make suggestions as to what was going to be on it?
Yes, they did.
Ms. Shealy.
Just to follow that up on that, Dr. Lane, is it possible that in the update, we get a list of the panel members and who picked their affiliations and who put whom on the panel?
Yes, we absolutely can send you that.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to add one more thing. This past year, I was able to take vacation time from my job. and attend 2 meetings of the Equity Advisory Panel. And they were very good meetings. I would like to thank the members of our staff who were there, as well as the members of the Equity Advisory Panel. I did ask at the last meeting I attended how they felt about the progress they were making, that we were making. And of course, while it's slow, they felt that the district is now moving in a positive way. So they were satisfied with what is presently going on in the district with working with them. They felt that the relationship had improved, and we were doing much better at the spirit of the thing. You know, you can have all your things lined up, but it's the spirit of the work being done that sometimes means the most. And the feedback when I had attended was that they felt that the spirit was there and were pleased with what this administration and the current staff are doing. So I did want to put that out for everyone. I did take vacation time to attend 2 of their meetings, and it was time very, very well spent. With that, are there any, what items do we want to hold for further discussion at the legislative meeting? Mr. Sumter.
In the education portion, items number 26 and 29.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy.
You got it.
Mr. McCray. Dr. Hawley.
General authorization, 26.
Okay. Mrs. Fink. Mrs. Khaleesi.
Number 37 for the surveys.
Thank you. And Mr. Brentley.
I'm an elected board member covering District 8, and I represent my community all the time. I want access to every item to raise questions after getting feedback from my constituents. So every item that is before us for vote, I want to have the opportunity, if necessary, to be able to speak on them next week at the legislative meeting.
Okay, thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Brentley. We will move, I'm sorry, what? We will move on to the Committee on Business and Finance. And Mr. Joseph, would you like to tell us a little bit about it?
Thank you, Mrs. Zita. On consultants and contracted services, we have 3 purchasing items. Item 1 is for the purchase of doors and accessories on an as-needed basis. Item 2 is for the analysis of swimming pool water at various locations. And item 3 is for the purchase of various medical and first aid supplies. There are 4 technology and software-related items. Item 4 is a contract renewal for software support for the World Language Program. Item 5 is a contract renewal for software to manage supplemental education services. Item 6 is the renewal for a maintenance contract with EMC. And item 7 is a contract for student records management. Items 8 and 9 are for annual GASB compliance requirement activities. Item 9 is for workers' compensation compliance activities. Item 11 is a lease renewal for 2 demountable units at Brookline. And item 12 in this section is for a contract renewal for lease space for parking of district-owned vehicles. Under the payments authorized section, item 13 is for the district's daily payments. There are 2 insurance renewal-related items. The replacement tab for item 14, which the renewal for automobile and garage keepers liability, is in your purple folder. Item 15, which the renewal for errors and omissions insurance, is a placeholder, and it will remain as a placeholder until an updated item is brought to you next week, which will more than likely be an extension, a 30-day extension, as we work to secure a rate for an annual premium. Item 16 is for additions and deductions for various construction projects. Under general authorization, item 17 is related to Duquesne Light providing electrical service at Greenway. Item 18 is a Plan Con submission for SciTech. And to the credit of Ira Weiss and Ted Vassar, we were able to bring forth a revised pupil transportation contract in item 19. And finally, item 20 is a contract amendment for concerning real estate matters, bankruptcy cases, and TIF matters. Thank you, Mrs. Zito.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. We will begin with numbers 1 through 12. They're on the pink pages, and they are consultants and contracted services. Mr. Sumter, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. No questions at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Shealy.
Just on number 12, I see that this is a renewal. I think, I really wish I owned this parking lot because this is tremendous. But is this done the same way as the lot here and the lot for Kappa so that employees pay a portion?
This is not for employee park. This lot isn't for employee parking, it's for the parking for our district-owned vehicles, so our fleet.
Well, it says employees. That's where I was thinking I was confused, but it says school district employees on the south side. So this is for our fleet.
I think the fleet vehicles are there. I think the employee vehicles go in as the fleet vehicle comes out.
Okay, so this is not, I'm parking my car going to work. This is our sort of storage location.
I'm swapping my car for my truck.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so that helps me. So this is not like the other programs. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Mr. Eisler. Dr. Hawley.
Yes, I'm going to just move on with this number 12 to extend it a little bit. Have we, and it may not be, may not be giving this up at this point, but I have to ask this question because I haven't seen it. Where are the teachers going to park at Obama, other than that teeny-weeny parking lot they have?
We've been working with the URA, with the city. Mr. Vassar, again, wearing another hat, has been very, very helpful and has been working with the councilman from the area. We need some signage changes that we're working on the city to try to change the Highland Park, the Highland Avenue across the street from the school, and change the time limits on the parking. And then there's parking that's going to be along East Liberty Boulevard also, that there's going to be some striping going on there for the parking. I know they created a bus lane also. You know, we're working on that. So it's going to be, and we're not solved, but we're working on solution.
Okay. Will we have a solution, though, by the time school starts? I'm really concerned about that corner because everybody now is going to be moving basically at the same time in that neighborhood. And I don't want the neighbors knocking at my door about this.
And we've worked with the city for having some of their best crossing guards be right there also.
Oh, yes.
The woman who was at Reisenstein, I believe they're moving her to that busy four-way intersection. So we're doing our best. We also have early childhood drop-offs.
Yes.
We're timing out we're working with Carol, with the principal, on her start times in relationship to school start times, school end times. We have the staging of the buses that we have to, handle on Highland Avenue, also on the school side. So we have a lot of activity within that area.
Yes. Can you tell me, are we able to purchase any parking spots at the Pittsburgh Theological Seminary? I see our vans and police cars over there.
I don't think we have that as a solution yet, but I think that's one of the, ELDI, the organization, the community organization, is helping us also.
Okay. I just wanted to.
Mrs. Fink, Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On number 6, do you have an address that would be put in that box? I'm just curious for it. You can give it to me through the board update, that's fine. I believe that's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mr. Brentley.
Can you tell me, for this item, what percentage are going to African-American women-owned businesses and small businesses? Do we have a breakdown or a rough guesstimate? I'm sorry?
Which item?
We're on the packet. This is consultants, right?
Yeah, you mean the whole one?
Yes, for the whole packet, yeah. I mean, in easy terms, like this packet, maybe the total is $2 million. We will be cutting checks for $483 to women-owned business, X amount of money to minority businesses. It has to be crystal clear like that, because anything else is,
We received a report from the office this month, and we really have very limited activity. There's not a lot of contractor facilities contracts. This month's participation is zero. There isn't, there aren't any.
okay, what's the total amount here roughly?
I don't have a total of this.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Moving on to the blue, oh, Ms. Shealy. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Shealy.
Thank you. You opened the door, Mr. Camarda. Just for the I want to call her everything but what she is, crossing guard. Obama does still have a staggered start.
Yes.
So it's really more critical that she's there for middle school.
I believe it'll be covered through the staggered start, yes.
She's not there all day. She's not, well, she's currently not, or well, there's not school right now, but her current, I don't know what time she's at Reisenstein, but it's not the full day.
No, they don't work the full day.
No.
But she's there in the morning for the time that she's supposed to.
But I think that Obama requires a longer spot time than, say, a person who's placed at Minadeo, because Minadeo has one start time. So I just want to make sure that, do you see what
I see your point. Her hours of coverage may be longer because of the expansion of the start times.
And I
Not
guess
just one start time.
it-
And we'll follow up to make sure that,
If the city's not willing, then I would really strongly suggest you get the little kids covered more so. I mean, it's important for high schoolers too, but,
we'll verify how
Yeah.
the hours of coverage.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving to the blue section, number 13 through 16. Blue, because the numbers are out of order.
They're out of order.
We'll go numbers 13 through 16 in the blue.
We were just testing to see that everyone was paying
And I
attention.
passed, all right.
And I have to say today, when
I
I was,
can count
when I
to
was,
16.
when I was preparing, I said, what's wrong with my package?
All righty, there you go. Okay, Mr. Sumter.
No questions at this time, thank you.
All right, Ms. Shealy.
Just to add to your work, it would really help me to have when we do the change orders, the building name, because it's not, with schools moving and everything going everywhere else, it might be a little clearer if the building name was actually in the slot. For example, Pittsburgh Obama is listed, and I had a thought, we're not doing any work at Reisenstein, we're doing it at Peabody.
We'll provide that make sure it's clear.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Mr. McCray? Mr. Eisler? Dr. Hawley? Mrs. Fink?
On this insurance issue, Mr. Weiss, didn't you let Mr. Gleason know last year that he needed to try to get these bids here on time?
Well, there are several things involved. First of all, with the auto, which is in the purple folder, that came in this week. It was marketed to the incumbent carrier, which is Travelers, and the two others who declined to quote because frankly the rates, they couldn't meet the rates. The professional liability, the errors and omissions insurance is being marketed to 3 carriers aggressively. With the activity that has gone on in the district the last 2 months, in terms of employment situations, the carriers are taking longer to quote this, and I'm satisfied that they have done more than they can be expected to do to get this in. They just can't get it in. They're not getting these quotes. So rather than rush it and get a number we don't want, we felt that it will likely be an extension of 30 days and then have this properly before you in September. I understand and hear what you're saying about the quote process, and the entire insurance situation is being addressed in the district. We'll be reporting to you on that after this process is over. But in this particular case, I think there are extenuating reasons why it's taking longer.
Thank you, Mrs. Fink. Mrs. Khaleesi. Mr. Brentley.
Keeping an eye on our adds and deletions, it looks like our additions are starting to creep up, or change orders are starting to creep up. Are we monitoring? Is there anything in place to monitor to make sure that they are legitimate items?
Yes, Mr. Brentley, and I have to commend Dr. Lane for what she brought forward to the board very early in her tenure with the district as superintendent, and changed the policy. Changed the policy, holding the contractors more accountable, and you're seeing the results. These, for the opening of school and what we're going through right now, these are very minimal, and it's also a side effect of not having a lot of big work going on, where we're having big change orders, so it's working.
Okay. Also, I am not certain, but I know I put someone in contact, I believe, with your office or Mr. Patil's office at least 4 months ago. A young man out of the traffic division. He asked me for a list, which makes sense. He wanted a list of all of the schools in the Pittsburgh Public School District, and a list of the schools that were closed versus the schools that are open, and also a list of the schools that have name changes. And the reason for that is that they are in the traffic department. They are the ones that handle all of the stoplights. Certain lights required staggered lights or flashing yellows. We're also the ones responsible for painting crosswalks, signage, school district, or whatever they call them, school crossing signs and so on. So I'm not certain if anybody remembers who made the contact. If they can follow up, they are working very, very hard. They wanted to, actually, they were already out doing crosswalks with Audrey Manaway, their school's closed. And they said, well, we don't know. Nobody's telling us. So,
Well, I've actually, right after you sent that request, I got on the phone with them, and I've had multiple conversations, and they have all the information they need.
recently,
Well, I actually did it as soon as you directed it. And
Okay.
then I followed up, just as a matter, probably within 2 weeks, just to make sure people were doing what they needed to do. So the initial contact was made months ago after you.
Okay.
And then I've had multiple follow-ups with them, in addition, just followed up again. So there's been no lag in the process. There should be no reason for that. They've had all the information they need.
okay, it would be great. You know what? I'm going to have him to call you directly, Doctor, because he just approached me 2 weeks ago, and we kind of worked side by side. Glenn,
I'll actually be happy to, for one of the reasons that I've learned a long time ago, that you document the date and time and the people you speak to, I have all of that.
beautiful, beautiful. I appreciate it, because what they want to do is to put it on the fast track, the schools that are opening or that are reopening or whatever, so that we can take care of all the crosswalks, the signs, and the lights and so on. So I will make sure that he gets a hold of you directly. That's all I need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. We'll move now on to the yellow, numbers 17 through 20, and it's the general authorizations. Mr. Sumter, to you.
Thank you, Mrs. No question.
Thank you. Ms. Shealy.
Number 18, so the state is moving on Plan Cons. I think the last thing we had discussed about Plan Cons is that they may have frozen their reimbursements. And I see that we're submitting an application for reimbursement that I'm hopeful about, but I'm just trying to get the reality of this.
So the state moratorium was on any project that hadn't received approval H. So this for had received approval J. So this for the submission of final costs for this project.
So the expectation is that this is a real reimbursement that we will receive.
That's correct.
Okay, good news, thank you. And I think, like many of us, we commend, or I personally would like to commend Mr. Vaster and Mr. Camarda and our partners in busing, our bus partners. Transportation is the word, thank you. Carriers, in reaching a financial agreement that's beneficial to both sides. And that goes out 2 more years, I believe, with rates being frozen or not increased above what the state index will be. So that's really good news. Oh, number 20. Is this the right one? The increase in this is huge, huge, gigantic, like double.
I'll address this. The increase is huge. The Board of Property Assessment Appeals and Review is conducting multiple hearings at the same time. In other words, they may have 3 or 4 hearings each hour, 6 days a week, which requires multiple attorneys attend them. There are numerous large appeals, particularly in the downtown properties, that require both appraisal contract, expert appraisal reports, which is included in this figure. We're making a lot of effort to try to have as solid a final assessment number as possible for the budget purposes for next year. And we acknowledge it is a large increase, but this is an extraordinary year in terms of appeals, both at the board level and in court. And the appeals, the tax base must be defended. This contract has been in existence really since 1996 with Ford and Counsel, which is an African-American firm, and this is a 50% arrangement. So this is a significant MBE item for the district as well. But we do not expect, hopefully it will be as high next year, but it is not really within our control. We do all we can to settle these cases sensibly and litigate as few of them as we can. And we're doing active outreach to the major property owner attorneys in town to do that. But we have had several that have gone to hearing, and that involves multiple days of court and expert testimony.
So, just in layman's term, individual Joe taxpayer, the county just issued a lot of reassessments, I mean, within the past week or two, or based on the initial hearings, not the court ones, I can't think of the right term. Informal appeals. We are not pursuing those, are we?
We are not, the school district is not present at those hearings. That's a process that is designed for the property owner and the assessment department. No taxing body is present. And in the vast majority of cases, any appeals that are filed from that point are being filed by property owners. Now, we have filed some where the decreases are not appropriate, but we've limited those, frankly, because there are a lot of taxpayer appeals. So we're not filing that many appeals unless there's an egregious case.
So, let me just repeat you. In the informal appeal process, we are not generally going back after those assessments unless they are egregious.
That's correct.
This tab is to support the next level of appeals, essentially.
Well, yes, the next level and those that may still be in the process that remain to be resolved.
But that are heard before a court, not before an informal assessment.
A court or the Board of Assessment Appeals. None of this funding goes towards informal appeals. We are not involved with that. We have no role in it. We don't attend those.
Okay, I think I understand. Thank you, Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Mr. McCray.
Thank you. I think I'll start with number 20 because the informal appeals were a joke. The people that did the assessment were listening to your appeals. So that's my personal opinion at any rate. But this is a tremendous amount of work that the district has to do in order to get our budget for next year. Anything over $1 million, there's an article in the paper the other day, they covered it pretty well. Anything over $1 million, they can actually bypass the informal appeals by agreeing to go to a litigation, or what is it, consolidate? Make an agreement between the court and the attorneys. They hash it out, they get a fixed number, and then that helps us build our budget. I think PNC has already done that with their properties. It's
Correct.
tremendous because it's helping us really. If we don't build the budget, if we don't assess the right number in December, come January, February, we're liable to owe people outrageous amounts of money because their appeals are, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they win their appeal down to 40 million. We're in real big trouble. So that's why we're trying to be very proactive with this one. And I think that it's a big number, yes, but it's a tremendous amount of work. If you've ever been to a court, sometimes a judge will have a whole list of things he just basically signs off on because those are agreements that were made between the attorneys, and it saves the court time, it saves the court costs, and that's basically what we're doing here. We're saying we're going to sit down with your attorney, Mr. Property Owner, set a fixed hard number that we can all agree on, and the court signs off, and it's done. Nobody can change it until the next attempted assessment. Anyway, number 19. I can't thank Mr. Vassar and the group there enough. Another tremendous amount of work went into this. I think that's why we haven't got the times for our buses right now. And it's not just the yellow buses. He had to work with Port Authority, and Port Authority wasn't ready to do things yet. And it just got, you can't believe, I can't believe Mr. Vassar's still alive. The things he's gone through, it's tremendous. I can't say enough for the work he's done, and I can't thank him enough, and I think Mrs. Khaleesi will take care of some more of that. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Mrs. Asuda. I think that I know a lot of people in this district take a lot of grief, but boy, I'll tell you, the next 6 weeks, Mr. Vassar's working 24 hours a day trying to make everything run. I just have a question, Mr. Joseph and Mr. Camarda, on 18, and I thank the question from my colleague. I want to ask it a little differently. Do we have any other Plan-Com requests before Harrisburg right now that are affected by the executive change?
We have a few that weren't at that Part H level, but we have a number of them that are that are, I'll call it in the clear,
right,
that are in that approval level. So I think we only had one or two that were a problem.
Then, if I could go to our solicitor, is there any appeal process at all, or is it purely executive order and that's the way it is?
It's purely executive order. There are legal issues around this because many districts, and this is a statewide issue, have entered into projects and issued debt on the strength of earlier parts of Plan-Com, which established those levels. There could very well be down the road a litigation over this because bondholders that bought bonds with all those representations, I believe, may have a remedy if the state sort of changes the rules in the middle of the game. So as of now, there is this executive order, but I believe there are discussions going on about the so-called unintended consequences of something like this.
Thank you. And then my colleague, Mr. Sumter, if you can bring this up to School Boards Association, because I think it is, Mr. Weiss did say it's a statewide issue. It is, and I think that Mr. Camarda and Mr. Joseph can get you the amounts of money for us. But I do think that it is potentially damaging to the school district as well as 500 other ones in the Commonwealth. Thank you, Mrs. Asuda.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Dr. Hawley?
I too want to thank all parties involved for getting the transportation underway, Mr. Vassar and Mr. Camarda, and Mr. Vassar's team. But there are a couple of questions that I'd like to ask, just for clarification. On the second page, it has Yellow Cab Company, and it says sick cabs only. So no one else will be able to get yellow cabs?
We don't use them for anything else.
Pardon me?
We don't use them for anything else. They're
Okay.
really an emergency if we have a reason why a child would need to be transported. So it's not, they're not, yellow cab is not part of our regular transportation solution on a daily basis.
Not even for, well, let me ask you this question then. What about the children that are in shelters? How will they get to and from school, the little ones? I know sometimes we can give bus passes to the older children that are in shelters, but what about the little children? How will they
I
get
think
to
it
them?
depends on the routing and how many we're moving out of specific shelters. The need may only be for a van. If that's the case, we would be transporting with a van.
Okay, so they won't get a yellow cab, but they'll get a van in order to get to school. Okay. That's really what I want. Does the transportation list, does it include for public schools and the non-pubs?
Yes.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mrs. Fink?
Just want to thank Ted and his office for getting my grandchildren to school once again.
Thank you, Mrs. Fink. Mrs. Khaleesi?
Thank you. On number 17, can you explain what they're going to do at Greenway? Can somebody explain it?
So it's giving Duquesne Light the right of way to attach a point of service to Greenway to provide electricity.
And we don't have that now? Is it being, I mean, they obviously have electricity.
Continued service. So it's continued service to Greenway. So it's not that the building doesn't have electricity already, but it's an additional anchor for continued service to Greenway.
Okay. I don't understand that, but that's okay. Number 19, and Mr. Vassar and his team, and he'll make it clear to you, it was a joint effort, really did work very, very hard to do this, and the success he accomplished here is something that he should be very much commended for. He didn't stop until he got the best he could for this district, and he's a man very dedicated to us. So I, too, would like to thank him. I'm sorry? Oh, that's right. I believe the total savings was 1.8 million with the work he did here, and that he should be so commended for that. So thanks again, Ted.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mr. Brentley?
Yes, I first want to, number 20, Mr. Weiss, you said that is a 50-50 arrangement there. Okay,
That's been from the beginning.
okay, all righty. And I didn't want to clap all the way, totally, sort of, kind of, for Mr. Vassar until I see how my son. You know, hey, I'm trying to keep it real here, because I don't know how my son is. No one's told him. My wife and I are saying we don't know if it's going to be a bus or a bus pass or whatever. So, but I do want to say, but I also want to, kind of man up a little bit to Mr. Vassar. Is there a reason why he's not here today, Doctor?
I need Ted to be routing buses. And we talked about his need to be here. I'm not sure, his head would be really big tonight. But I will pass on tomorrow how well he's appreciated.
Well, I just want to be the first to tell him I know I'm responsible for at least 10 calls. I mean, as the calls come through and, and it's rampant because parents are scared, they're concerned. A lot of parents are working parents, so They put their kids out at 7:31 to go to school. Their bus comes at 7:45. They have to sign in at 8:15, and so everything is very, very important. And so I just, wanted to tell him I am really, really thankful his ability to juggle this, and we're really thankful to have him. And this is the Pylon Tad Vassar season, because it's not just this time, but it's every year. First 30 days, then they'll call me. They'll call us. Everybody gets the calls. He will be so-and-so, or he will be a sweetheart because he makes things work. So I just want to, say that how much I appreciate him, and that we do whatever we can to support him. Dr. Lane, is there a possibility of maybe adding some phone people on for the first 2 weeks in his office? Because that kind of cools parents down when they can at least hear a voice and say, yes, that bus is late, and yes, we're working on it, or, it's a possible.
I'll talk to Mr. Vassar, but I think one of the problems is you really have to know what's going on in there to be helpful. You can answer the phone, but you don't have any answers, and parents aren't thrilled with that, so we'll see what he thinks. We'll ask him if that would help.
Okay. And you can, as well as your staff, I'm sure he'll see this, but please communicate to him on the staff level the appreciation from the board and what he's getting ready to go through in another 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. What items?
I just wanted to say to the people that are watching this meeting that from the last round of conversations that we've had, you can see that board members have families who use the Pittsburgh Public Schools transportation. We have problems the same as you do, and we sympathize, we understand, and we're all praying for a nice, smooth start to school.
And my phone usually doesn't start ringing until after they get their notice of what their transportation. Okay, what items do we want to hold for discussion at the legislative meeting? Mr. Sumter? Ms. Shealy? Mr. McCray? Mr. Eisler? Dr. Hawley? Mrs. Fink? Mrs. Khaleesi? Mr. Brentley?
The ability to hold any and all if necessary.
Okay, thank you.
I do have an announcement.
Go ahead.
I just want to remind my colleagues that next week I will also be introducing a motion for the district to waive the fees for this season for those teams that we normally would charge a fees to use for use of our pools as well as our football teams. Whatever else comes down from the policy committee is something extra, but they did not ask for what we are putting them through. And so it will be a motion to waive for those midget football leagues who are already in their season, and then there are at least 2 agencies. I know one that Mark Rodriguez is working with that uses our pools to teach those children who don't know how to swim, and he spends his time. And then he has to turn around and try to raise the money. So I will be putting a motion on the floor, and I'm asking all my colleagues to support that. 80–90% of students in both categories are Pittsburgh Public School students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Could we have that in advance of the meeting so we'd have time to read it, please?
Yeah, I also want to mention, too, that yes, I can, but keep in mind, because the comment was made many, many times before, we didn't get this in advance. For a new item, I am not required. As a courtesy, I'm sharing it early on. But
Absolutely. That's
yes.
why we like
Well,
to
I
have
wanted-
the opportunity to read it so we know it to
it would
save
be-
time.
Sure, it would be very, very simple, but I wanted
Good
to
stewards of all of our
clarify
time.
that.
Thank you. Mr. Sumter.
I just very quickly wanted to thank Mr. Fisher and Mr. Corey for being with us this evening. I understand Mr. Corey was a former card-playing partner with my father. My father and my wife's father attended Peabody High School with Mr. Fisher. And he was also, when my grandmother was a teacher at Fifth Avenue High School, Mr. Fisher was also a teacher at that time. In addition, Louise Brennan, Helen Faison, George Couples, Irv Biggs, and Robert Mungeon were all down at Fifth Avenue at that time. So they put out a good stock of teachers, and we want to thank you again for sitting through this meeting with us, and it's good to see both of you. Thank you.
There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.